What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of Making Mizzou, brought to you by 360 Vodka. I'm your host, Martin Rucker, my co-host, Tommy Saunders, and today we got the King of Columbia, the Prince
man.
of Missouri,
Corby
Jones, the man
Yeah.
himself. Corby, man, what's up? How you doing? We appreciate you jumping on.
Of course, anything for you guys.
Man, listen, I feel, just so blessed to be sitting here in the presence of Hollywood, the most Hollywood guys I know that maximize everything that they do in life, on the field, off the field, in Big 12, at nightlife. You guys are it, man. Hall of Fame inductees. Hey, it's my pleasure just to sit in your guys' presence today.
Tommy, you're too kind.
Oh, hey, Corby, man, start the show off. Give us some of your thoughts and some of your takeaways on this Mizzou team that we're seeing out on the field thus far.
You know, it kind of reminds me of some of the teams I played on. Right now, they look a little schizophrenic. They look a little shaken. Don't know what you're getting week in, week out. And I think that's a core team issue. And I think their capabilities are there. I think you lost 3 stars on defense in the draft. You had a couple of transfers out as well that were strong, quality players. So they're just trying to find their identity, I think.
Yeah. We had a little dust up on the coaching staff this week, and it's real interesting that it came at this time, if you ask me, and then 2, that the defensive line coach was the guy to get fired. It's real interesting. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I know you spent some time in some NFL training camps. You're a high level college player. Give us a little bit of your thoughts on that issue there.
My perspective has always been players play and coaches coach. Another phrase I tend to use often is it's not X's and O's, it's Jimmys and Joes.
Yeah.
And if their Jimmys are better than your Joes, I don't care who's coaching the team. So I think there's a mentality that has to change in the locker room, and that starts with the players. I mean, on my teams, for sure, there's a leadership component that needs to take over.
Yeah, I thought it was.
So talk. Go ahead, Ruck.
Well, I thought it was real interesting that on the college level that this kind of move was made. Right. I remember back when I was with the Cowboys in 2000. I think it was 2011. We started out the season like 1-7, 1-6, 0-6, something like that. And Wade Phillips was the head coach at the time. And after that last game that we lost, Wade Phillips got fired. And Jerry Jones himself came into the meeting room and addressed the whole team. And Wade was in there and he said, "You guys just got a good man fired." Wade Phillips was a good football coach, but we weren't winning because guys weren't doing what they were supposed to do. And the NFL is a totally different world, though, and so in that world, when things aren't working, somebody's got to go. And it really usually jumpstarts everybody else. And that was what happened with us. But Jerry knew it. And he told us that. He was like, "Listen, this ain't Wade's fault. This is your guys' fault. You got this man fired. But we couldn't fire all of you." And something had to happen.
Yeah.
And so he's the guy who just fell on the sword. And to me, looking at that game, you got a second-year head coach, a first-year defensive coordinator, and then these cats came out for the first time this season in a 3-4 defense after losing, like you said, 3 NFL talent defenders last year, and they fire the defensive line coach. It was
I got one for you. You guys are too young to remember this, but you ever heard of an actor named Lee Majors?
Yeah.
Okay, Lee Majors started in the 80s, like not a sitcom, but an 80s drama show called The Fall Guy.
Mm-hmm.
So they just call him Lee Majors because that's kind of what we got going. And Ruck, something you said, it's just the dynamic of the D-line coach getting fired in a situation like this, rather than in the NFL. It's kind of a microcosm of what college football has become, and it kind of tells you that this is business now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not what it used to be. I mean, these. I mean, my dad's. You guys know, my dad was on staff. My dad was a coach my entire life, and we moved 7 different times when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Because when the head coach got fired, then all the assistants got fired.
Yep.
That changed in about 2000, and the athletic departments started giving the non-head coaches, the position coaches, contracts that were tied to the university rather than tied to the head coach.
Sure.
So at least if you get fired, you're getting paid rather than having to pack up and go find a job.
Yeah.
The other crazy thing, though, is like in the NFL, like you can fire a player. In college, though, you can't just pull a scholarship. So I'll be curious to see what kind of effect this actually has on the players, whether it's an adverse effect or if it actually kicks them into gear, because they're not going anywhere. I mean, I guess at the end of the season they could, but like right now, you can't cut them next week.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Ruck, on that, because in the NFL, it's their livelihood. These are young guys. These are young guys, and they know that the guys behind them aren't good enough to play, and they're gonna play. There's guys.
You're not bringing in somebody else off the street who was just on somebody else's 53-man roster.
Absolutely.
Who was an All-American the year before, right? Like,
you can do whatever you want. Exactly. And these guys, they're not into their own now. They're still young and trying to figure out themselves and figure out their play and whatnot. But it is disheartening to see a coach build his career up, get to an SEC school, and get it taken away like that because of players not executing and beating the guy across from them.
Yeah, and I don't even know if it's so much as that. You got guys that are still learning the system, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a brand new defensive coordinator, and they haven't been performing up to snuff all season long, but they're 4 games in, adjusting to a new scheme, to all new coaches. I mean, he was a first-year coach, and then on top of that, in this game here, they come out in a brand new defensive scheme they've never run before all season long. I mean, it's just it was an interesting fire to me,
right?
Especially at the time. So we don't need to belabor the point, but
but if between me and you, Ruck, you gotta go, bro. Sorry.
Hey, and I'll tell you what, Tom, as long as your family can keep eating, I would happily give up my job. You know what I mean? I'll figure it out as long as you don't have to miss a meal.
Hey, I appreciate that, Corby. So, the '97 season, you guys found yourself, 500, 3-3. And you came back and won 4 of the last 5 games, and the only game you lost was that Nebraska game. So talk about, as the quarterback, as a leader of the team, what was a mindset like when you're sitting there at 500, and how did you shift? What was the energy like, and what was that process to finish the season strong and get to a bowl game?
It's a mentality. I mean, it's finding who you are and believing in the guys around you and wanting to play for the guys around you. You guys all know as well as anybody, if you're not really playing for the people that are next to you, or if you don't believe in the people next to you, then you're not going to succeed. That's why it's the greatest team sport there is. Because if one person isn't doing their job, then it can shut the whole thing down. And that 97 team, that was my junior season. And so Brock Oliva was the unquestioned leader of that team as far as work ethic and respect from the teammates. And Brock called a team meeting after we go back from K-State that day, and we had just gotten shelled. I mean, it was not even. I mean, we could have. I mean, we may as well have stayed home. I mean, it was. I got hit so many places. I mean, I should have been in an ice tub for about six days after that, man. But it was such a beatdown. But it was like, it felt like we gave up. We felt like there are players on our team that gave up. And that was the one thing that Brock, as a senior, and he got the seniors together and got us all in there. And he said, you know what, we're not going to go out like this. We're not these teams of the 80s that just were content with losing games. I mean, it's a different attitude, and that's what it's all about. It's about having the attitude. And I know right now those guys down there, their confidence is shaken. Sure. I mean, that you take a heartbreaker at Boston College after you get the best kick I've ever seen out of a college kicker.
Yeah.
And I'm not a kicker fan. Let's start first and foremost. I don't love kickers ever, but this kid can kick, period.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you come off that, and you come out flat, and your confidence is shaken.
Mhm.
And they've got to find a way to get that back and learn how to love and play for each other.
Yeah. As a quarterback, right? Like, so you control the ball on every snap. Like, as a quarterback, how do you get that out of your players? Like, you can do so much, or even take it a step further, say Brock Olivo, he's a senior. Well, he's a running back. He only gets the ball if you give it to him. So, like, how do you let other players influence you and let other players make you a better leader of your offense and then turn that into the team because you don't even play defense at all?
Well, I will say that our 97 defense, even the games that we came out firing on offense, we knew that we were going to have to score. We knew we were going to score about 30. And we had a running joke. Our prevent defense was called Falcon. And every time we heard the words Falcon, I'd go over to our bench and I'd say, guys, put your helmets on. We're going back out. Because the prevent defense would prevent nothing but for us winning. That was it.
Hey, so
No, we always had. I mean, the way I look at a quarterback, and the great ones are all the same. It's the same way you look at it at a head coach. How well can you motivate the people around you to play for you?
Right.
In order to do that, you have to know personalities. It's like my mom used to tell us when we were kids. I will not treat all of you the same ever, but I will treat you fairly. And so if you can't understand that somebody else, like I got a wide receiver out here that if I jump him, I'm losing him for the rest of the game.
He's done. Shut down.
He's gone.
Yep.
Absolutely.
But there are guys on my O-line that are friends to this day. And I would go at them and I would come hard at them in the game. And that would motivate them. That would fire them up and they'd be ready to play. But the only way you can do that is for them to know that I'm going to die for them.
Yep.
And if you ask anyone I played with, they knew that I wasn't going to quit ever. I wasn't going to slide 2 yards from the first down. I wasn't going to. I mean, listen. You want to hit me, but you're going to get hit as well.
So, Corby, I heard through the grapevine a story about at the K-State game where Coach Hill was signaling you plays and you were waving them off. What? Tell me that story. What is that all about?
Bro, that might be one of the funniest stories that I come from college. Okay, that's the 97 K-State game. When they've got Semino and they've got Oaks. They've got who's the other kid? I played for the Vikings linebacker. Their linebacking core. They had Jared Cooper at strong safety who'd come down to the box, and we kept running friggin' zone option into this stuff, and we're not blocking a soul, not on the And so I keep taking these hits. And I'm saying, okay, we got to do something different, whether it's play action, get me on the edge, do something. So we're in the third quarter, and Coach Hill reaches up, signals in 0-9, which is zone option to the right, a read option to the right. I'm going, okay. I get to the huddle, I step back out of the huddle, I said, and I shake my head. He starts backing people up because he thinks I can't see him, or I can't remember what he just sent in. He's backing everybody up, signals it again. I said, I feel like a pitcher waving off the catch. Nope, we ain't throwing a fastball. We ain't doing it.
That's unheard of. That's hilarious.
So I do it one more time, and finally I look at the ref and I say, timeout. I go over the sideline, and I tell Coach Hill, I said, and our offensive coordinator, Coach Burnt, was up in the box calling in the plays to Coach Hill, who'd send them to me. So I go over the sideline. He goes, Corby, what's the matter? You can't see me? And I said, heck yes, I see you. And I said, if you want to run the option one more time, I'll take off my helmet, my pads, and you give them to Coach Burnt and tell him to come down here and run with it. And so the way that gets, and I use an expletive or two in that conversation. And so the way that gets conveyed back up to Coach Burnt was, Corb's not comfortable with the option right now. Not exactly what I said, but he got the point.
That is so fun.
So do you remember what plays you ended up running?
I don't remember what the next play was, but 2 plays later, we hauled a pass play, and I scrambled for like a 17-yard touchdown and lost a shoe in the end. That's how much I was. I mean, I was just trying to get. I was trying to get away from getting hit. I knew if I got they could hit me.
But that's leadership. I mean, it isn't about getting hit. You're taking hit. You'll do whatever you want for your team if it's working. But if it's not working, we're not going to do that. And I think those are the teams that are successful when the coaches are listening to you. You call a timeout. Yeah. You say, "Hey, coach, this play is not working," in your own words, but they listen to you over those relationships, that are built over the years in the summer, in the winter conditioning, right? A lot of these players, and we saw it whenever we were younger, when Coach Pinkle's program is that, on Saturday in September, people want to step up and start talking loud. People want to start trying to be a leader and get out in front of the team and whatnot. It was like, well, where were you in January and February and March? I saw you didn't make your conditioning test, right?
You were throwing up.
You were throwing up. You didn't put the work in. And it's about building those relationships with your teammates and your coaches. So whenever you say, Coach Hill, no, not run the option, he is conveying that. He's listening to you. And the game plan changes in it, and look at your guys' season and what happened because of that relationship. And I think the same thing happened with when we played. The coaches, made an effort to really get to know us, to invest in us, and build those relationships, and we had success as well. So, what does this team need to do from today moving forward to the end of the season to be successful? And regardless of how many games we win, but to come out there and compete and really build, that camaraderie that it's going to take to continue to build the program.
First thing is they got to believe. They got to commit to each other, and they got to believe. And if they're doubting themselves and doubting the fact that they can compete, then they've already lost. You guys know that. I mean, granted, I lost a heck of a lot more games in my career than y'all lost, but you understand what it takes to win. Period. Absolutely. And if you go out there and the first play or first series, you get stuffed, and then you get back in that mentality. Oh, here we go again. If you get into that, then you're gone. It's a wrap.
Yep.
So they got to believe, and they got to commit to finishing the game, finish the battle.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that. Here we go again, Teal, because that was one of the big things with us was, that same old Mizzou mentality. And when, you're talking about that Falcon defense, you guys were already rolling. Like, here we go again. Put your helmets on, boys. And one of the things that we focused on changing while we were there was not here we go again, but just saying here we go, right? Like, it was just another opportunity for us to get out there on the field and go prove it. Another opportunity to go play. Another opportunity to put a brick in the wall of the foundation that we were trying to build for the program. And I think that that's one of the things that this team, you're really going to find yourself when things aren't going well, right? You build off of positive momentum, but you're made out of your mistakes, if you ask me.
And Tommy, to go back to what you were asking me about that 97 team, that next week after that K-State game, we travel to Stillwater and play an undefeated number 12 ranked Oklahoma State team who had R.W. McCorder's first round corner on the edge, and we came out throwing at him. My 5'8" wide receiver Kent Lehman lit him up the whole first half. So we go up. We're up like 28-3 or 28-7 or something. I mean 31-7, something like that, something crazy at half. I mean, they got Coach Smith on the sideline getting interviewed, crying because we're playing so well. And 7, we're going, so we're fired up about this. All right. So now we think, okay, we've turned the corner. We come out second half, get conservative, end up going down with 1 minute, 17 seconds left on the clock. We get the ball on our 20, and we're down by a touchdown at this point. So we basically did nothing. So at that point is when the mentality changed. It's everyone's doing great when you're winning. When you're up, when you're killing people, I mean, everybody's happy. But who are you? Who are you when things are down? When the chips are down and you've got a minute left to win a game, what do you have then? So what we did, we ran 2 crossing routes, got to the 50-yard line after a 50-yard touchdown to Ricky Ross, who made the best catch of his career. I mean, to tie the game, we win in double overtime. at Stillwater. That's what changed. That from that point on, there was no more doubt. If you can remove the doubt, then you're there.
And it takes grit. And I'll tell you what, real quick before you ask Tommy. So the improbability of you guys tying that game and winning, right? It doesn't matter. You do everything you can to make it happen. Okay. Whether it's, it's improbable, it's not going to happen, but you just continue to do everything. You don't accept that it won't happen. And in this game last week, and this is just going to, this is going to come because we've got a lot of young players on this defense, on this team now. But there was, I think it was right at the end of the first half, and it was 3rd and 12, and they ran the ball in for a touchdown. And a corner came from the guy broke a tackle in the middle of the field. Corner came from the backside and had a chance to probably dive, swipe his feet, tackle him about the 2 or the 3. They probably would have scored 2 plays later, but maybe they wouldn't have. They might have fumbled, but the dude just gave up. He didn't tackle him. And those are the things, like when he looks back on this film this week, the coaches are going to kill him, and then he's going to be killing himself if he's a competitor, and it won't happen again. But as a young team, as a team that was already down 35-10, going into 42, I guess it was at that point, 42-3 or 10 or whatever it was, like those are the plays that have to happen to you before you kick it in gear sometimes. And so that reminded me of it. And I think these guys are going to be okay. They just are going to, they're going to fumble their way through it a little bit, and then we'll be happy that they did in a couple of years.
When we came into the huddle with that minute 17, we came into the huddle, and I looked maybe it was minute 21, minute 27, 17, whichever one. I came in the huddle and I looked at every one of them. I looked at every one of my guys and I said, if anyone doesn't think we're going to win this game, you need to get out of my huddle.
Get out.
Let's go.
And one of my wide receivers was like messing with his shoe or something. He was looking down, and I looked at him and I said, hey, and I'm not going to say his name. I said, hey, I said, if you don't look at me and if you don't believe, then I'm going to get somebody else in here right now.
Yes, sir.
And he said that. He goes, that's not it. That's not it. I said, all right, let's go.
Yep.
I like it.
And I mean, it seemed, when you're going through this, Coach Pinkel, I remember we had to do the 17 laws of teamwork, right? And it seems when you're doing it, you're like reading off the paper, all the 17 laws during 2-a-days and whatnot. But it's real, the law of accountability, like not accountability, countability. Can I count on you when the game is on the line? Okay, we can be accountable and we can show up to weights and we can show up to practice and we can, we can play games and catch third downs. But when the game's on the line and we got to go 98 yards for a touchdown to win the game, can we count on you? Do you have that dog in you? And I think that's what, you go to Mizzou because of that, because you have a chip on your shoulder, because you have something to prove, right? And you're ready to work. And so you got to find that. You got to be able to pull that out of your teammates that they lost it for a second.
Yep.
Just like you said, and if you don't have a relationship with that receiver, he's going to shut down. If you have a relationship with them, then you can say whatever you want, or how to talk to him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and I was as frustrated as anyone at that point because I mean, we didn't play well the second half. We didn't. I mean, it went from the top down. We didn't call the right plays. We didn't play well when we had the right plays called. I mean, it was horrible. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to, I mean, your accountability. It's more than that. It's love. Mm-hmm. How much do you love your teammate? Because I can fail for myself, but I'm not going to fail you. I'm not going to let you down.
Yep.
No, that's solid. Well, switching gears a little bit to homecoming, we got North Texas coming in this week. I'm sure you had a couple memorable homecomings there in Como. Corby, tell us about your best homecoming memory that you got on the field and off the field, if you want.
I don't know if I talk about the off the field, but we'll go with the off the field.
Hey, we could be here all day talking about you and Rucks off the field.
Library studying.
That's what I'm talking about.
No, I think that I probably that 97 homecoming because it was OU coming in. Granted, it wasn't the real OU. It wasn't like I tell people about beating Nebraska. Like even y'all, that Nebraska you guys beat. Those dudes were Nebraska. Those guys were dressed up in Nebraska's uniform.
They had uniforms on. So them wasn't the black shirts, was they?
They're just disguised as Nebraska. But I mean, the OU team wasn't the OU team. Granted, those are the same players that came back and won the national championship the next year with a different coach.
Sure.
I mean, they had talent, they had gifts,
Mm-hmm.
but we were so committed at that time. You know, we had so much. We were so confident and so committed to winning. I mean, we didn't care who stepped on that field.
Mm-hmm.
We were gonna go out there and we were gonna beat them. We thought that we'd compete with anybody in the country at that point.
Yeah. So, a funny story that I tell often, but that '97 year, the kickball game against Nebraska. That was a day that I decided that wasn't the day until later on, but that was a day that made me come to Mizzou. Mizzou had been a doormat for years. And I remember going to Faroe Field. And another fun fact is we have the ball that you had in your hand when my brother and Grant Wistrom sacked you. That ball was at our house in St. Joe. But anyway.
I don't come get that ball. I don't come get that ball back. That's my ball.
But I remember being 12 years old, and this was like the first game that I was ever going to see Mizzou lose, or Nebraska lose. And I couldn't believe it. And when we showed up that day, you guys were good, and the stadium was packed, and the fans were just rabid. I mean, they were absolutely nuts. And I had never seen this at a Mizzou game before, and I was like, oh, my gosh, these people are crazy. And when it came later on, you know, the game went into overtime, and they ended up winning them. Guy kicked the ball off his shoe, and Nebraska caught it, but when it came time for me to make my decision between Nebraska and Mizzou, it was like, do I want to be a guy who goes out of state and helps another university continue a winning tradition, or do I want to stay home and try to bring all those people that you brought into the stadium back and give them something to cheer about again? And so I think it's so cool to hear you talk about '97 from your eyes, because in my eyes, like that was what made me want to come to Mizzou. And then, you know, Corby, then you want to be like Corby when you get to Mizzou.
You tried, Ruck. You did your best to try. Corby, what was that Nebraska game like for you? What was your thoughts? Because, you know, when I hear people talk about it, it's like, okay, great, but you lost. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
I am. It's like I don't care about competing. I don't care. I want to win, and that's what matters. I don't care if I have 10 catches or drop 10. I want to win.
There are no moral victories.
Yep.
No moral victories. Mm-hmm. That was the game that, you know, of all the games I played, I would always critique myself first. I would go through and I'd say, okay, what could I have done? What could I have done here? What could I have done here? What could I have done better? Where were my mistakes? That game, I graded out like a 98 or something crazy. I mean, it was, I had probably my best, my best game of my collegiate career. And so I knew that I left it on the field. I knew that there's nothing I could do at that point. I mean, there was a freak play. You know, we had an audible. I mean, if we're going to get in detail, we had a 3rd and 2, and we had an audible and running option into the boundary. That was my check into the boundary. If they showed a bear defense, they came up in bear. I checked into that, and we had nothing. They had 2 people there. I couldn't do anything with it, and so we got stopped, and that forced us to punt the ball back and give them 1:07 left on the clock. If any other game other than that game, I would have questioned the call, and I might have checked the call. I might have checked something different, or I might have told them when we had the timeout right before that, because Nebraska called their last timeout, or second to last timeout, because they called one right after that, right after they stopped us. And so we had a timeout. So I'm on the sideline talking, and the coach gives me our checks and our plays, and I'm going, okay, if they come in this, we're going to do this. And I'm thinking, I don't want to run this into the boundary. I have no out. That way. I mean, I'm thinking, you know, if we need 2 yards, then get me on the edge, run action, something like that to the field side, so at least I can make a decision or I can run if need be.
Right.
But Coach Byrne had called such a great game that game, and I just didn't. This only time. I mean, there were times during the season I questioned probably 60% of his calls. But that day, he had called such a great game. I didn't even think twice about it.
Yeah.
So we run it, and that's how it happens. But you know, if I could do something different, I would have checked into something different. But hindsight's 20/20. But
Sure.
I mean, we still had an opportunity to stop them. But you know, that's a Nebraska team. What our motivating factor that day, or my biggest one, was that was a 3:30 game, and so we got to watch like Sports Center and everything in the morning. And I heard Lee Corso say, Corby Jones has had an incredible year, but he will not finish this football game.
Dang.
This team had given up. It's game 8. This team had given up 21 points all season.
Yeah.
All season.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, you're going into a buzzsaw, and you know it.
Man, that's unbelievable.
And we had, I mean, that's what I'm saying. We believed, and as we were 21-point underdog, we had so much faith in our guys and what we were doing that we thought we had a chance. And then they let us hang around and let us prove to them that we had a chance. And then we're rolling. Now we feel like, I mean, who are these guys?
It's crazy how much detail you can remember. I always find it fascinating especially when you talk to quarterbacks.
What are you trying to say, man? Trying to say I'm old? Trying to say I'm old? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I'm trying to say I've been hitting the head a lot, and I can't tell you what I had for lunch yesterday,
Well,
let alone how much time was on the clock at 97.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I think that, you know, as a quarterback, me and Ruck talk like Chase Daniel, like could remember every single play. They're just like you're talking about. Can remember down to the detail of the play call, how you're feeling during the time. You know, I know for me, I'm only focused about myself and what I can control. I'm not worried. I can't control the play call. I can't control anything else. I'm so self-absorbed just to do my part and my job. And especially with the guys that I played around, the great receivers, you know, I would go 3 quarters, 3 hours without a look and then have 5 catches on a 2-minute drill. Right. So for me, it was staying focused the entire time. So it's just interesting to see as you're talking about these plays and memories. And I think that what this team has to figure out and really dive down is, and when you talk about belief, is like, you know, some players when you're young, you think that if I had a different coach, and I got more opportunities, or if we were in a different offense, if all these other circumstances change, then I'll perform, right? And, you know, that is not the case. You have to go out with the opportunity that you have right in front of you and give 100% effort, know what you're doing, and create your opportunities, right? You can't make excuses and start pointing blame, right? And then when you point blame, you don't have control. You don't feel like you have control over the situation, right? Go out there and do your job. Do what you're supposed to do on every single play. Nobody played a perfect game, right?
Absolutely.
So I don't know. I think you get frustrated because you invested so much into Mizzou and overcoming, right? You're down low and you're trying to figure that stuff out for yourself and you're trying to overcome it. And then when you do, you're like, okay, I got it. And you want to help these guys out and help them, turn the corner. You hope they turn the corner and turn it around.
And speaking of turning the corner and turning around, we appreciate your time and we'll get you out of here because I know you got a busy day. But what do you see for these Tigers for the rest of the season?
I think it's all on them. I mean, I think they can do whatever they decide they want to do.
Yeah. But
they got to want it and they got to believe that they can do it. I mean, whether or not we think they can do it makes absolutely no difference.
True.
They need to shut out all the outside noise.
Yep.
Stop reading the press clippings, bad or good, and focus on your job and your team and your teammates.
Yep. Absolutely. There you heard it. On Making Mizzou, Corby Jones. Our show sponsored by 360 Vodka. Thank Tommy Saunders. Big thanks to Corby Jones. Thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you next week.